He didn't notice it at first. Just another Monday morning, coffee in the cup holder, GPS lit up, same empty passenger seat. But as soon as the engine turned over, the stereo buzzed. A notification. Voice memo, play. He tapped it, distracted, and then my voice filled the car. Soft, controlled. You always said I was too quiet in the mornings, so I recorded this instead. He froze, because it wasn't just a message. It was me. Not texting, not calling, just speaking after weeks of silence. And this time, he couldn't interrupt. Not on this drive. I used to count the silences between your words, I said in the recording. They got longer every month. His fingers twitched on the steering wheel. The memo played over city noise and engine hum. Every word waited. I spoke quietly, too calmly for what I was saying. The night you came home late. The receipt in your coat pocket. The lipstick that wasn't mine. I listed them, one by one, like data. No tears, just timestamps. Traffic blurred outside the window, but he wasn't seeing it. He was hearing what I never said out loud. And there were 5 more memos queued up. He reached for the pause button, but didn't press it. My voice kept going. I didn't leave because you lied once. I left because you lied like it cost you nothing. The engine hummed beneath him, but his hands were cold. My tone changed, slightly sharper now. Each memo was a chapter, a confession, a mirror. I reminded him of the first time I stayed quiet, and all the times after that. The seat beside him stayed empty, but I was in the vents, the speakers, the air. He couldn't touch me anymore, but I was everywhere. The next memo began just as he hit the red light. My voice returned, softer now. Do you remember when you said you'd never hurt me? I replayed that more than any lie you told after. His jaw clenched. Outside, the city kept moving, people crossing, engines idling. But in his car, time stalled. The light changed, but he didn't notice. I spoke of the night I sat in the dark waiting for a text that never came. Of the way I learned to swallow anger just to keep the peace. This wasn't closure. It was combustion, controlled, precise. Like glass breaking slowly, one crack at a time. I wasn't looking for someone perfect, I said. Just someone honest. Someone who didn't use silence as a weapon. He exhaled sharply, like the air had turned to sand. Sunlight poured through the windshield now, too bright, too revealing. I described the night I realized he was more invested in keeping secrets than building trust. The messages from just a friend. The way he smiled while lying. I didn't scream in the recording. I didn't need to. My calm was louder than rage. He gripped the wheel tighter, but couldn't drive fast enough to outrun what was already in the speakers. The next file autoplayed. Memo 4. The moment I knew. He glanced into the rearview mirror, and for a second, he didn't recognize himself. It's your birthday, I said, and you spent it on your phone, smiling, hiding. His face drained. He remembered. I walked the listener, him, through every fractured second of that night. How I stayed up after he fell asleep, scrolling through photos that didn't include me. You were next to me, I said, but already gone. No drama, no curse words, just that quiet rising heat. The kind that doesn't need a flame to burn. If you're still listening, I began, then maybe you're finally ready to hear me. The tone had shifted, no longer sadness, but something sharper, heavier. I didn't talk about him now. I talked about me. About the version of myself that shrank to keep the peace. About the nights I replayed his half-hearted apologies like they were lullabies. I lost my voice trying to keep yours loud, I said. He swallowed hard, staring at the road but seeing none of it. This wasn't just a breakup. It was testimony. And he was the only audience. The memo ended. Another one queued up. He pulled into a random parking lot. Didn't even know where. Engine idling. Face buried against the steering wheel. Memo 6 started without warning. You said I overreacted, that I was too sensitive. But sensitivity isn't weakness, it's detection. My voice was colder now. Less grief, more grit. I laid out the gaslighting, the blame shifting, the empty I love yous. Each phrase was exact, surgical. You taught me not to trust my gut, so I learned to trust the facts instead. He didn't cry. He didn't move. He just sat there, letting the weight of it all settle across his shoulders. And I let him. From the outside, it looked like any parked car. But inside, it was a confession chamber. Memo 7 played quietly now, my voice barely above a whisper. This isn't revenge, it's release. I listed what I had reclaimed, my time, my sanity, my space. You won't get another apology, because you never deserved the first one. Outside, birds passed overhead. The morning kept going. But inside that car, time had slowed. He was still frozen behind the wheel, the final words echoing in the cabin. I ended with a breath. A long pause, then silence. No goodbye, just done. The final memo ended, and for a moment, the car was dead quiet. Then the stereo blinked. Voice memo complete. He sat there, breathing unevenly, hand trembling as he wiped his face. Not from tears exactly, more like something deeper. Impact. He had always counted on my silence to keep him comfortable. But now, every unspoken sentence had hit him like a steering wheel to the chest. He looked at the empty passenger seat, still molded to where I used to sit. But this time, there was no one left to wait for his apology. Only echoes. And the engine still running. His eyes drifted down to the cup holder. My phone had been there once. Now, just his, and a playlist of damage. The screen glowed with a list of files. May, Memo 1 through Memo 7. All time-stamped. All delivered before sunrise. All from a contact labeled simply, me. He hadn't even noticed me since in the audio system. He thought I didn't notice anything. I had watched him lie, watched him minimize, watched him convince himself I didn't matter. But here was the record, undeniable, unerasable. It wasn't a breakup text. It was evidence, a mirror, a consequence. He put the car in drive slowly, like every motion was suddenly heavier. I watched, metaphorically, from the rear-view mirror as he pulled out of the lot. There was no next step for him. No right words. No script to fix this. Just him, his regrets, and my voice now hardwired into the places he once tuned out. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't slammed a door. I had simply told the truth and made sure he had to hear it. The tear on his cheek wasn't mine to comfort anymore. It was his to keep. A souvenir from the silence I broke. Back home, I didn't pace, didn't cry. I sat in the quiet, tea steeping beside me, the phone face down on the counter. I didn't check if he listened. I knew he had. The power wasn't in the reaction. It was in the delivery. I had always edited myself to protect him, held my words like fragile glass. But now, every shard had landed where it belonged. I didn't feel triumphant, just emptied. In the best way. like stepping out of a room that had been slowly filling with smoke. The kind of peace that feels almost violent when you've lived in silence too long. I opened the app one last time. All 7 memos sat in a row, sent, delivered, unread. But I knew that didn't matter. Some truths don't ask for responses. I locked the screen. Around me, the apartment was clean, still mine. The plants I bought without asking. The shelves I organized without compromise. This was my space again. No ghost on the couch, no tension thickening the air. Just a voice, mine, that had finally caught up to the noise. The voice he used to ignore. The one now living in his speakers, behind his rearview mirror, in the echoes of every lie he swore he never told. I left the apartment just before noon. No destination. Just forward. The sun bounced off the buildings like everything had been freshly cleaned. I wasn't lighter. I was sharper. More whole. Every step away from that car, from that man, from that silence, I felt something come back to me. Not love. Not trust. Something older. Something mine. He still had the car. Still had the stereo. But I had my voice. I had the truth. And I had the peace that comes with finally being heard, even if he never says a word back. The tunnel swallowed his car in shadows, light strobing across his face like questions. His hand hovered over the stereo, fingers twitching near the play again button. But he didn't press it. Not yet. The silence in the car was now unbearable. The same system he used for podcasts, for playlists, now felt haunted. Every time he drove, he'd hear something different in my voice. Hurt, clarity, distance. And maybe that was the point. I didn't give him closure. I gave him memory. Irrefutable. Permanent. The car wasn't his escape anymore. It was the crime scene. And the evidence was still echoing. I picked up my journal that night, the one I used before I met him. The pages were clean, not torn or angry, just steady. I didn't write about him. I wrote about the quiet, the new kind, the silence that felt earned. Outside the window, traffic moved like usual. Somewhere he was probably driving again, maybe replaying Memo 3, maybe still trying to deny it all. But I didn't care. My story wasn't about him anymore. It was about the girl who stopped erasing herself to be loved, and the woman who finally pressed record instead. Eventually, he parked the car, turned off the ignition. The stereo blinked one last time. No new messages. The screen dimmed, but the seat beside him stayed empty, unchanged. And the silence that filled the car now wasn't peaceful. It was punishing. He had always feared confrontation, avoided hard conversations, deleted evidence. But this stayed. My voice had left his speakers, but not his mind, not his guilt, and not his morning drives.